I guess we'll start a slideshow. And like I said, I'm Julie Watson, and this is my husband, Greg, who will be after me. So we moved to San Diego in 2010 from Mexico City, where we had been living on and off for 10 years, working as foreign correspondents for the Associated Press. The move back was jarring in many ways. I felt like I didn't belong anymore, having missed out on so many experiences, cultural cues, and other things that connect us to a place. I felt like I was an outsider in my own country. At the same time, I felt like I belonged to all countries since I had experienced a more global view outside the United States. As I struggled to find where I fit in, I found myself searching for a place where I could feel more grounded. I told myself I wanted to give our two daughters some kind of spiritual connection, and I did. But also, I was searching for myself. I had grown up in a traditional Irish Catholic family, but I'd left the church as soon as I moved out of my parents' house after high school. I disagreed with many aspects of Roman Catholicism, or at least in the way I knew it. Feeling guilty about everything was about pretty much my life's MO. And I didn't want to have that for my daughters. So my plan was to put on my reporter's instincts and explore what was out there. Like Arturo, I set out to visit every place of worship in San Diego. And I first tried the Unitarian Church, attending a service. Next, I went to the Eye of the Buddha, a store by my house in a strip mall, which held a chanting event. I had read about Buddhism and attended classes, so I already had an interest in it. But on some level, I viewed it as something that required that I shave my head, wear a robe, and dedicate serious time to sitting in the lotus position if I was going to really be legit. And I wasn't up for that. So I kept Googling and found the Buddhist temple of San Diego. Since the family service was every Sunday, it seemed easy to go to, and I could bring the girls. What I found was something that seemed very different, but at the same time, very familiar. I didn't attempt to join the chanting, feeling self-conscious that I had no idea how to pronounce the words or what they meant. I also was unsure about what to do when people offer oshoko. I was clearly outside of my comfort zone. I sat feeling painfully aware of myself, feeling almost voyeuristic. But the message I heard that day from Kenji Sensei about being grateful and how actually we are okay as we are resonated with me. It was what I needed to hear. My anxiety over my choices in life, moving back to the US, dissipated at least for that day. I started attending Buddhism 123, where Kenji Sensei explained that the chanting is not so much about the words as it is about the feeling of community, which is reinforced by chanting together in sync. He also talked about how Shin Buddhism was for the working people, not monks. And in modern day terms, that meant meditation could be done wherever, even at a stoplight. I tried it on my way home, taking a moment to breathe after coming to a stop at El Cajon Boulevard after I came off the I-15 ramp. I thought, I can do this. The classes distilled what I witnessed at the Dharma services. The Sangha, the community, is what Shin Buddhism is about. Over the years, that realization, including the awareness that we're all interconnected, has only grown as I've become more involved. Helping teach Dharma school to the high school kids has also taught me about Buddhism, about what Buddhism means by discussing it with the students and hearing how they view things from many different perspectives. Their ability to show their vulnerability and share honestly is something for which I am grateful. And yeah, you can see here, this is where they've written down some haikus from after hearing about, the Buddhist poets who have written haikus. And also I play in the temple's taiko group, which has tested not only my musical limitations, but my sense of rhythm. I sometimes feel like Elaine Bennett doing the herky-jerky dance on Seinfeld, but I figure that's my way of spreading the concept of bombu, the ordinary person, the fool. It also embodies the importance of being together, the power of unity, a concept that in today's world is more important than ever. We've tried to apply the lessons we hear on Sundays as a family through volunteer work over the years that has included helping children We go to a ranch that helps kids who have autism, and where they ride horses, which is said to be kind of therapy that calms the children. We tutor refugee children in San Diego who are learning a new language and a new culture and a new country. We've served meals at shelters, housing people experiencing homelessness. I've also tried to embrace the virtues of wisdom and compassion in my work. As a journalist for more than 20 years, I've witnessed human suffering on a wide scale, from the aftermath of deadly hurricanes to senseless violence. I've primarily worked in Latin America. I've seen the best of people and the worst of moments. My drive is to give a voice to those who have little means to be heard and document the lives of those who have been lost, so the world can know who they are, who they were, and feel compassion. Much of my coverage has focused on refugees and asylum seekers who have experienced such horrors that they've decided to leave their homelands, which is not an easy decision and one I can't imagine making. Some have told me that sharing their stories has been cathartic, a kind of healing by talking to someone willing to listen. My hope is by telling their stories, including the small details of their lives, that can include something like, I once talked to a mom who weaned her toddler off his bottle right before she knew that they had to flee violence in Central America. I feel like that hopefully will show readers how they are not the them, but they are the we that Kenji Sensei has talked about. I believe if we relate to others, it strengthens our humanity, our compassion, our awareness of our interconnectedness. I have loved learning the rituals and traditions and history of Shin Buddhism, but also have felt that grounding I was seeking through the many moments outside the Hondo. I've been deeply moved and honored that to get to know all the different members, including the older members like Mickey and Ruth and others who have shared their life stories, including the painful details of their time in the encampments. The talks at Hospitality Hour have put into practice for me the pledge to break out of our shell and share a warm smile and speak kind and gentle words. It is a lived religion and not a studied one, to quote Reverend Dr. Takashi Miyagi. It is practice in eating together, dancing at Obon, making mochi, packing boxes at the food bank with the Dharma students, and also camping together. We've now been members for 10 years. I no longer search for where I fit in for a community. Here is where I feel grateful. I wish there was more I could give back to the community. I'm grateful for talks like these that cause me to reflect on my life and what I'm doing to better the world. It will never seem enough, but as Kenji Sensei and others have taught me, that's okay. I'm grateful for what I can do, and by giving back, I feel I receive even more.
So yeah, my name's Greg. I don't come from a really religious background in any way. I remember being dragged to church, on Christmas and Easter every year for, wearing uncomfortable clothing. As a teen, through the lens of music I was, into at the time, like punk and that kind of thing, I saw organized religion in the 80s as kind of a brainwashing or something of a bygone time that didn't interest me, and if anything needs to be torn down. But though I wouldn't mention it to friends, I was always left with the idea that there must actually be something going on, because how could you explain, the perfect way that the universe is and the balance that you see everywhere? So for me, in the face of all that, something like atheism would be the hardest pill to swallow, just because the idea that there's nothing at all at work seems to be less likely than even the Noah's Ark story from the Bible. During college, I gravitated towards Buddhist books that were quite generic in form and leaned more into self-help than theory. A lot of them were very easy to read Zen books like Zen Soup. I got a bunch from here. Do you remember any of these? Anybody? Zen Soup, Wherever You Go, There You Are, The Accidental Buddhist, Awakening the Buddha Within, and many more. they sort of didn't really form a base. They just offer kind of spiritual support and just seemed like an interesting cerebral journey, as well as a helpful way to reduce stress and that sort of thing. When we lived in Mexico, a lot of stuff Julie already said, but yeah, when we lived in Mexico, we went to a Buddhist class, and I was really put off by the exotic part of Buddhism. I just felt that it felt foreign to me, and which is ironic because we were foreigners at the time, but it just seemed, some sort of a foreign thing that I couldn't really grasp or get into. And moving to San Diego, as Julie mentioned, we were sort of searching for something. And as Julie found the San Diego Buddhist Temple, I went along knowing pretty much nothing at all about Shin Buddhism. I too, like Julie, felt awkward about the chanting. I couldn't understand how Kenji Sensei, would explain the chanting. I could understand how he was explaining it as a way of being both in the present moment and interconnected to Sangha, but I kind of didn't think it was really for me. So I went back to my books. My Shin Buddhist path went forward as before, as you might call like a nightstand Buddhist. I love many books that I've read, including Jeff Wilson's Buddhism of the Heart, and of course Ocean by Dr. Kenneth Tanaka. But more and more, more of an urging from Kenji Sensei, and how, although Shin is a practiceless practice, there kind of sort of needs to be some kind of practice. And that meant for me to wrap my head around the idea of Sangha. Of the three treasures, definitely for me, the idea of Sangha took the longest. I think I was even imagining maybe I would just get by as a kind of a closet Buddhist. Though I sometimes came off kind of gregarious. I think actually I'm on the screen. I'm kind of a screen because I'm, as you can tell, I'm kind of shy and awkward, especially speaking in public. But I had to give it a go. So without the Sangha element, that is what brings in the present much more. And not just the Sangha, but to feel really connected to the universe as a whole. As a nightstand Buddhist, I would read something interesting and think, oh, that's an interesting concept. Maybe someday, I'll give it a try. But it's not really in the present moment. At the temple, though, I tend to work almost every Sunday. I'm a photographer. I cover sports, so I'm gone most Sundays. So I've been trying to involve myself more, and the personal benefits of that have been amazing. I've been along on a lot of the Dharma school stuff, the camping trips, and all that, and that has really opened my worldview. Not to mention even just the time in hospitality and basically understanding a lot more of just the nightly Buddhist readings that I was doing. So now I've kind of come more out about being a Buddhist and on my Buddhist path. I've spoken about it to other photographers on assignment as we're sitting there waiting for something to start, which is half of the job, or with other members of my extended family or in other parts of my life. And I can never really be preachy about it, just because partly I'm pretty shy, and also I'm just utterly lacking in the ability to convey even the most basic elements of Shin. Even the concepts that I actually think I understand almost seem to turn to water in my hands, like once I open my mouth. Nearly every sentence seems to need a contrarian sentence to follow it up. So I have to admit, I doubt much of my path in Buddhism is all that interesting. There's been no revivalist baptism moment of faith, no getting dunked in water. It has just been a kind of a slow plodding effort for me, like a slow walk on an uphill path in the forest. Probably kind of uninteresting to talk about, but it's a lovely experience and requires effort. That's it, really.
I should say before Greg goes that the photos were all his.